Gentleman yields back his time. Thank you very much. Gentleman, Mr. Connolly is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And let me just say, I think this is one of the best panels we've ever had on this subject. I've been going to hearings and getting excited about improper payments for 16 years. Your predecessor, Todd Platt, chaired the first hearing I went to. Like Ms. Miller, I bemoan the fact that we don't seem to have made much progress. Let me just start by saying, to me, if you're going to have data sharing and data analytics that help us flag and ultimately prevent fraud, you need an IT platform that works. And a lot of this can be sourced back to the fact that we have underinvested in IT, in federal agencies, let alone state agencies, which I'll get to, Ms. Brown, for a long time. You know, IRS is a great example, where we kind of starved the beast of modernized IT upgrades, and then we're surprised when systems fail, when fraud occurs, when even non-fraud improper payments occur because we don't, you know, the information isn't correct. I want to give you a chance, Mr. Horowitz, just to comment on that aspect of this problem, the failure or the lagged nature of our staying up with IT modernization in the federal government.
It's absolutely a problem, as you outlined. I'll go back to 12 years ago when I became IG. One of the things we were going to look at and undertaken one of our early data analytics efforts was disability fraud. We're Justice Department employees.
I think you and I met on it.
We did.
Yeah.
And doing both getting money from labor through Labor Department, disability, as well as still collecting a paycheck from somebody else. One of the problems was the Justice Department's IT systems couldn't read all of the data that labor had, and so they couldn't do the match. Ours, we had to cleanse the data, build the system. We do it, as you know, from our time together working on these issues, pretty effectively and efficiently. But we had to do it because the IT systems weren't interoperable with each other.
Right. Even within agencies, we had
Correct.
competing HR systems couldn't talk to each other. Unbelievable. Ms. Brown, you and Mr. Palmer, my friend from Alabama, were talking about unemployment. And during the pandemic, you know, we changed the rules, we streamlined and made simpler eligibility, we pumped up payments, we extended the eligibility time period. But the problem with all of that is, so we set the rules at this level and we pump the money, but it's managed by 50 different IT systems, 50 different states, and we don't control any of that. Knowing that at the time, and I mean, we were worried about the emergency, so not everything was going to go perfect, but did we invest any money in helping the states upgrade their unemployment IT systems so that we could try to minimize fraud and try to make sure the system was efficient and payments got to people who really needed it in the midst of the worst pandemic in 100 years?
So
No, my question is real simple. Did we provide money? Did we make investments to give states resources to upgrade their IT systems to manage unemployment?
not enough.
Not enough.
No.
Okay. I just say to my friend from Alabama, I mean, I didn't mean to catch up, but I'm trying to make a point here that when we have sort of third-party execution, so we're not running the unemployment program, they are.
Yes.
What can go wrong with 50 different systems? And some did well and some did not. And the whole point was, get it out now. People are in urgent situations. We don't want them evicted. We don't want them hungry. We want to keep them together. And we couldn't meet that goal. By the way, same with small business. But we couldn't meet that goal because we got some old, clunky, underinvested unemployment IT platforms in the 50 states. And, you know, I certainly in my own home state of Virginia, I know people weren't getting their unemployment benefits, which was supposed to be flowing in April and May of 2021. They weren't getting it until October, November. And sometimes we had to go through a rigmarole of trying to make sure they were eligible. Ms. Miller, good to see you again. You appeared before my predecessor subcommittee I chaired. By the way, this is a good example of why IT and government ops need to be married. You had a phrase earlier today that fraud is a four-letter word, even though it's, of course, 5, but for government, we'll let it go. Four-letter word in a lot of agencies, and I want to explore that a little bit, and the others could jump in. This will be my last question, but one of the things that struck me about improper payments, not only fraud prevention, the biggest chunk, but even just trying to get it right so that we're not duplicating payments or whatever. There is no incentive system in the federal government to really make this your cause in life. You're going to get a Nobel Peace Prize if you prevent hunger and make sure a famine is turned around. If you're at CMS or HHS, you're going to get some big award if you can say, I expanded healthcare coverage by 10 million people. No one's going to give you an award, in theory, for you to say, I prevented $10 billion in fraud. Something didn't happen, I'm going to get an award. I mean, I liken it to local government. No one's going to give you, if you're on the Board of Supervisors, an award for upgrading the sewer system to prevent blowouts.
Right.
Even though it's a pretty critical function. So how do we turn that around? How do we and I know, Ms. Brown, you kind of alluded to this as well. How do we turn that around so we create real incentives, both for the agency itself and for individuals within the agency, to make this a priority?
Well, so I think we have to get creative. We can't fire people in the government, right? So we're not going to say, oh, agency leader X, you lost $500 billion of fraud, so you lost your job, right? And we can't cut their budgets because most of the budget is going to benefit the people that they're trying to serve. So cutting the budget does not it impacts the actual the victims themselves, right? And so we have to be creative in this problem. This is not we can't be analogous to the private sector. I think there's a couple things. One, when I was at GAO and we would talk to agencies about approving, let's say, applications, the performance metrics were all how quickly do we approve an application?
Yes.
So if I see that this application has some flag on it, well, my incentive, my performance measure is about, well, did you get your 15 done today? It's going to take me another hour to go run down this flag, so I'm just going to let that go, right? So part of it is incentivizing performance metrics around program integrity and around fraud prevention at every level, including leadership. There needs to be the scorecard idea that has been floated around here for senior leadership. The organization that I've just co-founded, the Program Integrity Alliance, we're creating a fraud benchmarking scorecard. And I mean, Partnership for Public Service has this, best places to work in the federal government. Agencies are super proud to be on the top of that list. They put the GAO puts it's right in the front, right? GAO we're the best place to work in the federal government for mid-sized government agencies. So it's a Hall of Fame, Hall of Shame kind of idea. I have been advocating for a long time that agencies who are continuing to see significant losses in fraud, waste, abuse, and improper payments ought to be put on some sort of Hall of Shame list. They ought to be having regular hearings. They could be quarterly. If we look to the private sector, things like banks who undergo monitorships when they have a big fraud event, like Wells Fargo has a big fraud event, they're undergoing this big monitorship for the next year. Everybody's like, they've got, an army of auditors in there making sure that that's not going to happen again. I mean, I think it would have to increase the budget of Ms. Brown and Mr. Horowitz, but you could create similar monitorships kind of for those really egregious agencies and say, we're just going to be all over you like white on rice until you fix this problem. So I think incentivizing leadership, performance metrics, and coming up with some sort of creative shaming and advertising and awarding and rewarding those agencies that are doing it good. But we're definitely going to have to be creative in this problem.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and thanks so much for holding this hearing. I really want to commend you and Mr. Mifune. I think this is one of the most substantive hearings we've had on the subject in the 16 years I've been here. Thank you.